I've reviewed a lot of hi-fi gear over the years. Headphones, IEMs, DACs, digital audio players, but I don't think I've ever reviewed anything as cute as this. This is the HIDIZS AP30 Music Boy. It's a dedicated hi-fi music player that looks suspiciously like a Nintendo Game Boy. It runs a Linux-based operating system, it has physical controls, and it even comes with a built-in falling block puzzle game. And somehow, despite looking like a novelty gadget, it actually sounds remarkably good. When HIDIZS first sent me this player, I immediately fell in love with the hardware, but the software needed a bit of work. Since then I've updated to the latest firmware, and I'm pleased to say that many of the issues I originally experienced have been addressed. So after spending several weeks using it nearly every day, here's what I really think. The first thing that everybody notices is the design. This thing is adorable. It looks like someone took a Game Boy, shrunk it in the wash, rounded off every corner and filled it with Audiophile hardware instead of Nintendo hardware. And it's tiny. Seriously tiny. The entire player is hardly wider than the plug of some of my IEM cables. That means you can actually take it with you. It slips into any pocket without a second thought, and after only a few days I found myself carrying it everywhere. I think that's something most modern digital audio players have lost sight of. They are incredibly capable, but they're also getting larger and heavier. The AP30 goes in the completely opposite direction. Despite its size, it feels genuinely premium. The chassis is solid, there's no flags, no cracks, nothing about it feels cheap. My favorite part of the hardware is probably the volume wheel. It has wonderfully tactile clicks. It doubles as the power button. A quick press locks the screen. And because it's slightly recessed, I never accidentally changed the volume while it was in my pocket. The rest of the controls are equally satisfying, with crisp, clicky buttons that make navigating the interface surprisingly enjoyable. HIDIZS also deserves credit for including a generous selection of accessories. Inside the box you get a protective case, a spare screen protector, USB cables and a magnetic ring. That last accessory confused me at first, until I realized that the AP30 can also function as a USB DAC. Attach the magnetic ring to your phone or your phone case, connect the AP30 via USB-C, and it sticks neatly to the back while using its own DAC and headphone amplifier instead of your phone's built-in audio hardware. It's a clever little idea that makes far more sense once you start using it. Now let's talk about the software. This isn't Android. You won't find Spotify, you won't find YouTube Music, and that's completely intentional. The AP30 is designed for people who own their music. You browse your library, choose an album, press play, then largely forget the screen exists. There's something surprisingly refreshing about that. One feature I didn't expect to appreciate as much as I did is the lack of a touchscreen. Normally I would see that as a disadvantage. Here it actually makes perfect sense. After a couple of days I realized I wasn't even looking at the player anymore. Wake it, adjust the volume, skip track, pause the music, it all becomes muscle memory. It's a small thing, but it reminded me how dependent we've become on touchscreens. With a phone, almost every action demands your attention. With the AP30, most of them happen without ever looking at the display. Of course, the most important question is, how does it actually sound? The answer is, far better than I expected. The AP30 is built around a Cirrus Logic CS43198 DAC, and HIDIZS has done an excellent job with the implementation. The presentation is clean and detailed. Nothing feels artificially boosted. Bass is controlled without sounding thin. Treble is detailed without becoming overly bright or fatiguing. Instead of trying to impress with exaggerated tuning, the AP30 simply gets out of the way and lets the music speak for itself. Vocals come through clearly and naturally. Acoustic recordings have warmth and texture. Jazz sounds wonderfully lifelike. Rock retains plenty of energy. Electronic music still delivers satisfying impact. Over the past few weeks I've listened to everything, from Elvis Presley and the Eagles to Daft Punk, Hans Zimmer and plenty more. At no point did I feel like the AP30 favored one genre over the other. It simply presented each recording honestly, and that's exactly what I want from a dedicated music player. There's also more power available than you would expect from something this compact. Using my Mezzi Audio Alba IEMs, I rarely needed to push the volume beyond halfway. There's plenty of headroom for efficient IEMs and portable headphones. You also get a standard 3.5mm headphone output and a balanced 4.4mm output, giving you flexibility if you decide to upgrade your headphones later on. Bluetooth was another pleasant surprise. Pairing was quick, connections remained stable throughout my testing, range was better than I expected, and the USB DAC mode turned out far more useful than I initially thought. Connect it to a PC or compatible phone and you can use the AP30's DAC and amplifier instead of relying on your device's built-in audio hardware. It's one of those features you don't expect to use very often, until you start using it. Oh, and before I forget, HIDIZS even included a little falling blocks puzzle game. Completely unnecessary. Completely pointless. And somehow I absolutely love it. Waiting for your coffee? Play a quick game. Waiting for your music library to finish copying? Play another. It's exactly the sort of quirky feature that gives this little player real personality. The latest firmware update has genuinely transformed the experience. Navigation is now much smoother. The software is noticeably more stable. Overall usability has improved significantly compared to the version I originally received. There is, however, one thing I'd like to see improved: library updates. Copying a large music library isn't exactly quick, and that's probably my biggest remaining criticism. Fortunately, once the music is loaded onto the device, that's not something you often have to deal with. The more time I've spent with the AP30, I've realized it isn't trying to replace your smartphone. It isn't trying to compete with Android-based apps, and it isn't trying to convince you to abandon streaming services. Instead, it's designed for people who simply want a dedicated device to listen to their own music. Load your albums, put your phone away, go for a walk, press play, that's it. And I have to say, I found that experience surprisingly refreshing. The latest firmware has addressed many of my original concerns. The hardware feels excellent. The sound quality comfortably exceeds what I expect from a player this small, and perhaps most importantly, it's fun. Genuinely fun. I can't remember the last time I described a music player that way. If you build your own offline music library, or you're simply tired of your phone trying to do absolutely everything, I think the AP30 is well worth considering. It's quirky, it's charming, it sounds fantastic. And I genuinely believe it's one of the most interesting pieces of audio hardware I've used this year. If you've got any questions about it, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.